During the debate, you talked about possibly proposing another reduction in the grocery tax.
Yes.
Could you tell us any more details on that?
No, what I said in the debate and what I have been contemplating for months is that I think it's important to keep the momentum going. I think if you stop it, it's much more difficult to complete the task of eliminating it. And we still got, what, 1 7/8 to go, because that last 1/8 is on there by the people. So I think it's important that we continue it. I can't tell you the percentage, but I will be able to tell you the percentage as we see the numbers and we get final budget numbers. I'll have them run it with several percentages from our recommendation. That is, I'll have DF&A run it with several options and look and see what we have. But I'm pretty conservative on forecasting, and so it'll have to meet the parameters of a conservative forecast and still be able to meet our essential services.
Which would be your priority? Cutting the grocery tax further or restoring pay raises for state employees?
Great question. We can restore the COLAs, I believe. I know we can for colleges, or free them up. And I believe we can for state employees if our current forecast continues, if our current revenue continues to meet or exceed the forecast. And we'll probably make that decision sometime in December, maybe in January, but probably sometime in December. If that's already built in, that makes it easier to take care of that and then still see what you can do with the grocery tax. Don't ask me today to choose between the two. It would be a very difficult choice.
Would you hope to do both?
Oh, yeah. But not the raises, just being the COLAs and the regular step merits. That's not any extraordinary raises.
Speaking of the cost of living increases, that last question, kind of seemed like, and that was in the debate, it didn't seem really like anyone on the stage fully answered.
I don't remember what it was.
I know we talked about the cars and pensions
Right.
and all this other stuff when it comes to state employees.
Yes.
But
Oh, you're talking about taking a car away from a state employee and what that does to their income?
Yeah, especially when you have state employees who don't make that much money, haven't gotten a cost of living
Yeah.
increase in several years.
Sure. Well, the good news on that is, if I understand correctly, the greatest number of people who had a car that they were permitted to drive home were higher paid employees. And the lower paid employees who can drive their car because they don't need a waiver because it's their job, like field auditors or folks that get up in the middle of the night to investigate something, or police officers, they're not losing their cars if they fit into that category. So I think, and we'd obviously have to look at this on a each one basis, but I think the majority of those folks losing their cars that took them home were higher paid employees, and they can afford it better than a lower paid employee. But that's anecdotal on my part. That's what I know about who's already given them up and who is the greatest number of folks who already have those waivers.
Do you think this debate will change anyone's mind who watches it?
Yeah, it could change some. Basically, most folks in a governor's race have their minds made up. I mean, if you believe all the polls, most folks are pretty solid one way or the other. There's always going to be some movement. There's some undecided, as there always is. And then there's some what they call soft votes. And a debate can change some of that. I think where debates really change votes are when there's a huge undecided. And usually there's a huge undecided when the candidates aren't well known.
Do you think there should be more debates?
No, I think this is enough.
Yes or no?
No, I think this is enough.
No.
Yes, I do not think there should be more debates. I think this one's enough. I'm sorry.
Gary, if I could sort of try to state what I think is Jim Keats' point. You say that 95% of the state general revenue budget is obligated to these essential things.
Sure.
You dare not cut it.
Right.
I believe he's saying, yeah, but the percentage doesn't speak to the efficiency within the percentage.
Sure.
And what we've allowed to happen is just the government by inertia, which we haven't done enough to make it efficient within that 95%.
Sure.
Is that
No.
possibly right?
Well, let me answer it this way. No, I don't believe that's right, to directly answer your question. And then let me elaborate on that just a little bit. when you're talking in generalities, when you're making broad statements, I'm going to cut waste, I think we can be more efficient, I think there are some things we can cut. Everybody who runs for office says that, believes that, and frankly, everybody elected to office would do that, in my opinion. Number one, I think most people are smart and honest and would want to be more efficient. And two, it'd sure be good for them politically if they could show I've cut waste here, or I've made things more efficient there. And it's easy to throw out nebulous, generic, we've got too much inefficiency, we've got too much waste. The devil's in the details. Where? What would you cut? Is $6,000 a kid too much money, and could we cut some of that out in terms of what is adequate? Is what we're paying in Medicare or Medicaid reimbursement too much in this area? Are we paying too much money for therapeutic child care, for example, and is that wasteful? Should we cut it out? You can always say, do we have too many employees, especially when somebody walks into a revenue office and there's 3 people standing around. Anecdotally, do we have too many if 3 people are standing around? Do we know that an hour earlier those 3 people were just running up and down the aisle? I guess what I'm saying, John, is it's easy for anybody running for office to make a broad blanket statement that we can do better with cutting waste and getting more efficient, and I will do that. I think the devil is, what will you do? Specifically, where is the problem? And it's like a lot of things. Sometimes we don't fix problems till they're brought to our attention because we don't know about them until they're brought to our attention. It'd be nice to know everything in advance and catch it on the front end before it ever happened, and so it didn't happen. Or it'd be nice to catch it yourself first. Without being overly obsequious here, sometimes the press does a great job of providing some of those services for us. Sometimes they don't. But sometimes that's what happens, is the press brings it to your attention, or a constituent, or a voter. But the devil's always in the details. Yes, sir.
Like you said, it's easy for someone that's running for office to say what they could do, would do.
Sure.
What do you think your shortcomings were your previous term? What do you plan on improving?
I've got a lot of shortcomings. You know, the one area that has evaded any success for us is changing the per capita number of bachelor's degrees. And there's a direct correlation between the income of your people and the economic vitality of your state and the number of college graduates. All the studies have kind of indicated that there's such a correlation there that you can't ignore it. And we've climbed a lot of statistical ladders in education. We are still at the bottom when it comes to per capita number of bachelor's degrees. Now, I believe there's 2 main reasons for that. There's really lots of reasons, but I think there's 2 main reasons for that, and there's 3 things that are being done about it. Number one of the reasons is they weren't academically prepared in the first place. They flunk out, or they don't make it, or they quit because they can't do the work. We are obviously trying to address that, or we wouldn't be now ranked 10th in the nation K through 12, and you saw that we're just now number 1 in the nation. It came out yesterday in increase in advanced placement math science scores and increase in the number of students taking advanced. So it's not just a select few and we've gone way up in numbers. We've gone way up in numbers, and we got even more kids doing it. Fort Smith Northside, for example, has over 800 kids out of their 1,300 kids in the school, either in AP or in pre-AP, which tells you it's not just a select small group of folks that this is touching. So that's one reason we don't have the baccalaureate where it needs to be. Second reason is you run out of money. Whether you're for or against the lottery, we obviously got a lot more money. Now we've got $130 million roughly going to scholarships from the state, not even counting what comes from schools or Pell Grants or any other form of financing, compared to $20 million, which is what we had before. So the financial part of it should be better. The third thing is we've incented forever colleges getting their money based upon their FTE, full-time equivalent, on the 11th day of classes. What that means is you're rewarding somebody for signing a kid up for a class, whether they stay in it or not. Last time we weaned them and we went 10% is going to be figured on who's still there at the end of the semester. We want to do that even more, so you gradually wean and change the funding formula. Now, they've got some costs that are ongoing even at the front end, even if a kid does drop a class. But we need to incent and reward folks for keeping them in class and graduating them. And so that's an area that I feel we haven't done enough. We've got to do more in, that I've got to work harder in. We've got to come up with even better ideas, something that has to be changed, because education and economic development are our cornerstones, and bachelor's degrees is a major part of education. Yeah.
Third ballot issue 3. Are you behind that? And how
Which one's 3 now? I get 3. Is that the interest?
The one that removes the limits on what you can, the threshold for providing support for the number of jobs the company's going to bring in.
The super projects, yeah, amendment 82 and all that stuff.
Right, and how crucial is that you support it?
I support it. I support it. It is one other tool. What it does is it fills that gap. But if you're not at a huge project, but you're bigger than what quick action closing can take care of, it would have a tendency to fill that gap and provide you another tool. The downside of that is, and what we'd be very careful about, is a lot of people say, let's go pass a bond issue. Well, passing a bond issue still has to have a revenue source that defrays the cost of those bonds. And one of the things I'm very jealous of is making sure that we don't over-indebt ourselves in bond issues that take away from general revenue, that cause you not to have a balanced budget or cause you to have to make cuts elsewhere. That's one of the reasons we're one of 4 states not in trouble, because we've been very careful about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but our time is up.
Thank you.